I am honored to introduce Police Chief James MacIsaac. He graduated from Belmont High School in 1985. He's a Belmont boy, and received a bachelor's degree in sociology from UMass in Boston, a master's degree in criminal justice administration from Western New England. He's a graduate of the FBI National Academy. He's completed senior executives and state and local government courses at Harvard University's JFK School of Government. And Chief MacIsaac emphasizes community policing. He is focused on ensuring that the residents of Belmont and the Belmont Police Department work hand in hand to ensure that all Belmont residents and visitors to Belmont are treated fairly and to make sure Belmont is a welcome community for all. I have personally witnessed Chief MacIsaac's works with the Belmont Religious Council and in various aspects of town affairs, and he has participated in the Belmont online vigil immediately after the killing of George Floyd. We are very fortunate to have such a responsive and compassionate leader of the police in Belmont. So we welcome you today, and thank you so much for speaking with us in worship as we honor all first responders. And so Chief MacIsaac, we are so grateful to hear your words today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you. As Pastor Eric said, my name is James MacIsaac. I'm the Belmont Police Chief. I'd like to thank Pastor Eric and the members of the Payson Park Church and their friends for today's First Responder Appreciation Sunday and for asking me to speak today. And I really do appreciate this service because COVID has given us a lot of reasons to cancel traditions that happen year in, year out. I'm glad to see that we're continuing this one. This year's First Responder Appreciation Sunday is being held during trying times, as we all know. Not only are we in the middle of a public health emergency, but we are also in the middle of a social justice movement occurring in our country, one unlike anything we've ever seen. And the emphasis of change that is voiced through this movement has thus far been focused squarely on the criminal justice system, public safety system, including federal, state, county, and municipal police departments throughout our country. On May 25th, 2020, in the city of Minneapolis, Minnesota, a white police officer placed his knee on the back of the neck of a black male named George Floyd, whom the officer had placed under arrest. Despite numerous pleas from Mr. Floyd, the officer kept kneeling for several minutes, or to put it more matter-of-factly, until he killed Mr. Floyd. The very next day, the video from witnesses and surveillance cameras that showed Mr. Floyd being killed by the police officer became public. And when watching that video, it can only say the eyes see, the mind knows, and the heart feels. And this video proved to us that it's sometimes words are just never enough. And at times like this, we need more than just words. The death of George Floyd runs counter in every way to the values of democracy, justice, and fundamental fairness. The circumstances of George Floyd's death has caused police leaders and politicians across our country to take a hard look at their offices, their organizational cultures, policies, procedures, and laws, all in an effort to prevent these kinds of tragedies from happening in the future. I can say with confidence that the towns of Belmont, Watertown, and Waltham and our other neighboring communities have police leaders and officers that are amongst the best trained in this country. They have leaders that are tuned into their communities' wants and needs and are responsive and transparent to their community's questions and concerns. I mentioned this at the night at the vigil, that eliminating racism throughout our country is a lofty goal, but I really believe that eliminating racism in a community like Belmont or Watertown or Waltham is a possibility. As the Belmont Police Chief, my focus is on those matters we can control here in Belmont. I tell our residents all the time, the most effective way we can build trust between the police and the community is for us to get to know one another. Residents should respectfully challenge their police departments if you think they're not responding to your concerns or the concerns of the public at whole. And the result of the many inquiries that the Belmont Police have received since May 26th, I believe, has helped to make us a better and more transparent police department. The criticism and anger directed at law enforcement across the country is well understood. However, as a society as a whole, we have to understand that police officers are not created, educated, and developed in police officer-making factories. Until all of us in the many institutions that are woven into the fabric of America are able to deal effectively with the subject of race, we will continue to have these problems in policing because police officers are recruited from, educated from the human pool that is America. The police departments across our country are in fact microcosms of society and all its isms. We need more of our institutions to state publicly, as the Payson Park Church has, that they are anti-racist and that they condemn acts of injustice against people of color and that they are taking actions to end racism. It's simply not enough for a person to click on a like on Facebook, share a post, change your profile picture, or take 1 minute or less writing a response comment. All residents need to reflect on what actions they can take and how they can hold institutions, including their employers, institutions of housing, to hold them accountable to help solve racial inequality in America. In closing, I would like to ask the members of the Belmont community to begin to take notice that there are many, many more concerns and beliefs that we all share in common than those matters that divide us. We need to stop looking for the things that separate us and realize that to begin building bridges that will bring us together, we need to know that we all took different paths to get where we are now, and that we need to exercise compassion, patience, and understanding with others whose views may be different than our own. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chief MacIsaac, for your words on this day. We're really deeply appreciative of all that you do, your compassionate service to the residents of Belmont and beyond. Thank you so much for joining us today. And our second speaker is Professor Ximena Soto, a Boston College professor in social work. And Professor Soto has been the Assistant Director of the Latinx Leadership Initiative at Boston College School of Social Work since March 2019. Originally from Mexico, she grew up in Texas. She studied at Clark University in Worcester, part of my old stomping grounds. Today she lives in Belmont. In her current role, she provides organizational leadership to recruit LLI, with Latinx Leadership Initiative students, to place them in internships, to recruit agencies to offer internships. She works to support the people that work with them, faculty members to teach in Spanish, and develop social work leaders equipped to work with the Latinx community and to provide sustainable solutions for all the many problems. Her work is instrumental in preparing future clinical social workers to support the Latinx community. She's also the recipient of the Greatest Contribution to Social Work Award, given by the National Association of Social Workers. This award recognizes her outstanding innovation and advocacy for underserved and vulnerable populations. So Professor Ximena, we've heard so much about you, and especially your excellent work of love with our neighbors and the Latinx population, and we welcome you today, and we thank you so much for speaking with us in worship as we honor you and all first responders. So welcome. We're grateful that you can speak with us.
Thank you very much, Pastor Eric, and thank you so much to the Chief. It was great to hear your perspective and to just know that you are working so hard in our community to really bridge and to, like you said, get to know them individually, because I think that that's where the work begins. My work at Boston College is to work with it. It's a little known fact that less than 5% of the social workers in the United States are of Latinx background. Somebody in the chat asked what the X refers to, and that is a gender neutral form of referring to the Latinx community. In Spanish, you have gendered words, Latina referring to women, Latino referring to men. And we know that there is a spectrum of gender identities, and the X just neutralizes the gender of the Latinx communities. Within our program, yes, we train social workers to work with the Latinx communities, but we pay close attention to what are the markers that really allow our students to flourish and to bring the assets that they find in their own communities into the educational workplace. A lot of times what we were finding was that we were bringing Latinx students into the educational sphere, and we were training them to be nice white social workers that would work with Latinx communities. And a lot of what we were teaching was not resonating with our communities. So what we did is that we said, you are enough. You bring a lot of knowledge and you bring a lot of cultural markers that are not recognized within the social work system that we can leverage to then empower and really give our communities that are under a lot of attack, anti-immigrant rhetoric, a lot of colorism, a lot of racism that narrates what our communities are, and flip those and really say, you are survivors, you are creative, you are surviving and thriving and creating despite all of the negative rhetoric that surrounds you. And that is extraordinary. And so we celebrate the extraordinary elements that our students bring so that then they can go back to the communities that they come from and celebrate and leverage all of the creativity that they bring themselves to be able to be stronger and healthier and more vibrant communities. One of the things that Chief MacIsaac mentioned was the systemic issues that we face of systems that were frankly not created for Latinx or communities of color. And so we train a lot of our social workers to really identify what are the barriers that don't allow us to enter systems, right? And I think that that is where the conversation is today. And with COVID and with the social justice movement, I think for the first time, we are not allowed to look away. And I think that that is the double pandemic that we're faced with today. And I take it not as something, we cannot take it as something that is scary, but it's a challenge and an opportunity for us to really look at the systems of care that we have created over time that have worked for the majority of people, but have left many others on the outside looking in. And that is an opportunity that we can take at all levels, because yes, a lot of the focus has been on the criminal justice system, but also it speaks to all of the other systems of care who have not stepped. It is not just the police, not just the criminal justice system that has created these bubbles of lack of opportunity and lack of access. We need to look at housing. We need to look at education. We need to look at, like you said, Chief MacIsaac, just where our own meeting of the systems in our own workplaces, in our own places of worship, and how we need to take the perspective of the assets that all of our community members can bring into our fold. And so that is the work that we're doing at the Latinx Leadership Initiative. And it is very eye-opening just to, on a daily basis for me, encourage my students to unlearn a lot of the messaging that we have received of not belonging. And it has been a challenge for me to really learn what are the markers that allow the fullness of these students to feel like they belong in our fold, and for them to really believe that they are just as extraordinary as everyone else in the program. That we are walking in the steps of Jesus and saying, how do I welcome people into my fold and make them feel like a very vibrant and important part of our everyday lives? So as COVID has unfolded, our communities have been hit the hardest. And it is a true signal of just how thin the thread was that was holding our systems of care together. We are so lucky that we continue to have access through Zoom and through other ways of communication and engagement. But we have an opportunity, and I invite you all to step into that arena that feels sometimes overwhelming, but it is an opportunity for us to really look at how to bring every member of our community into our definition of us and into our definition of community. Thank you.